Welcome back, everyone, to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. We're on our third segment related to rumors, and this time we're talking about rumors related to saving and paying for college. Joining me is my colleague, Alex Gonzalez, who happens to also be a former financial aid officer at the University of Portland. Hi, Alex.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
You too. All right, we've got a lot of rumors to cover here. So I'm going to go back and forth between the paying for college rumors and the saving for college rumors. We'll start with the paying for college rumor. And this one is this idea that, well, my student works and is over 18, so they can just file the FAFSA with their own information, or don't claim your kid on your taxes and then they can apply for aid independently. Any of these options actually true?
Unfortunately, it is false. It is false. I know, we're hitting 18 and we want, your students going into college and your student wants that independence and you want that independence, but there's some clear defined rules when we file the financial aid forms to determine dependency. And typically your student would be a dependent in I usually call it FAFSA land until they're 24. Now, there are some other things that are involved. So if the student was married, if the student was during that time had their bachelor's degree and all of a sudden was working on their master's degree, if they were an active duty or a veteran, if they had a child or a dependent that they were supporting during that time. And then there's some specialty like for instances with guardianship or homelessness that provide I guess more documentation, but there could be some special circumstances around the household that could warrant some dependencies. But for most families, the student is a dependent in those certain circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
And they could just Google or do a web search. We don't necessarily want to promote one type, just dependency status questions and come up with the list.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I mean, we highlight this in our blog
Yes.
as well. So especially for those special circumstances, if there are some different dynamic things that are happening in the family that we kind of cover as well in certain blogs.
Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
blog.getintocollege.com for those of you who aren't as familiar with our blog. All right, let's move on to a saving for college rumor. And this is such a big one. You won't get financial aid if you save for college, or the 529 plan funds will decrease my chance for scholarships.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so this is, I'm going to deem this one false. But there's some caveats. Yes, there is some truth that a 529 plan is potentially going to, it is something that the financial aid forms, when we're looking at need-based financial aid, will ask you. But it is not as extreme as this rumor kind of leads you to believe. It, your 529 plan is evaluated as a general asset and into the equation as a dependent student. Even though that you might utilize it as a student asset or might think about it as like this is your student saving to use for college, it actually is added into the parents' information, which is evaluated at a much lower rate. And in the scheme of things, like kind of when everything is looking and being evaluated, household size and income are kind of really the larger factors than your savings. And I always remind families, especially when it comes in on my conversations, especially early on when I'm working with families going, say, oh, it's going to affect my financial aid. Well, do know that your dollar is stronger than your financial aid. Think about that. It's like think about it as like a cut. Your first aid is kind of a little, it helps here and there, but ultimately that extended care or that savings is going to have more of an impact on your choices in the future and reduce your debt, provide you with opportunities to maybe reach for a school that's a little bit more expensive, and that meets your needs and that kind of thing. So there's a lot, do know that financial aid isn't a dollar for dollar exchange. I lose a dollar and then I gain a dollar.
Right.
Your savings is going to do a lot of the work.
Well, right, because, and we're going to talk about this next. And so maybe this is a good segue into this whole idea that if I make over $100,000, I won't get financial aid. But I think this is a really important focus on the fact that qualifying for financial aid is largely based on your income, correct?
It can be, but there are like other factors to this as well. This is kind of that half, not the full story, it's a rumor, right? So
Right.
you're going, okay, well, in some cases, based on like the colleges that you're targeting, this could be true, but it doesn't mean, or your desire to receive like federal grants or other types of financial aid. It might not be what you're looking for at that first moment. But families can take advantage of student loans at all incomes. While you might not be eligible for, the equation could be a little bit true for families that are looking for federal grants. But you could still be eligible for college-based grants depending on the college. You could be eligible for state programs as well, in addition to those student loans that kind of help pay for college throughout that whole time. So do know that it is based on the college. It could be based on the individual, but yes, income and household size are going to be larger factors. But your choice of where you're going and applying to make those decisions are other factors as well.
Right. And there are colleges that are, I mean, let's face it, there are some colleges these days where all in, we're looking at $90,000+ And, those schools are probably looking at $100,000 income or $110,000 income, let's say, because we say over 100 as not necessarily being that much, right? Because of how expensive their school is becoming. And so, like you say, it's going to depend on not just how much money you make, but also where you're applying to college and what kind of money the college has to give to students. I think it ties in really nicely to the savings. And I do want to caveat this all by saying I am not the finance expert. I've just done a bunch of segments on this, but to our listeners, and Alex will keep me honest here, but if you have saved no money, the college that your kids are applying to may give you the same amount of financial aid, whether you have savings or you don't. And so the money that you've saved, you could be using, I think, as you mentioned, to not go into debt, right? So otherwise, if you're being gapped, that savings could be the lifesaver. And you wouldn't have gotten any more or any less financial aid with the savings as you do without the savings, but because you have the savings, it's going to be a lot better financially for you and for your student.
Yeah, and you can fill in those gaps. Sometimes financial aid gets lumped into, okay, what I make and the kind of those family income amounts, but there are other types of financial aid that are available too. Through merit scholarships. We try to talk about financial aid as kind of more of that need-based, and talk about and separate merit-based scholarships. But if you're reading articles, hearing, talking to somebody on the sideline or in your friend groups or your family groups, they might lump financial aid in kind of a big bucket. And so knowing that there's different types of financial aid that you can utilize that might be affected by others, can really, when you're sitting down in the spring, comparing award letters, different colleges have different resources, different states might have different resources as well. Your income might be a factor, but might not be the only factor in your affordability or your ability to pay.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's get to another saving for college rumor. I didn't open a 529 plan because I'm not sure my child will stay in state for college. So I guess the rumor is that if you don't know if your kid's going to be in state, you shouldn't open a 529 plan.
Yeah, I asked all of our educators and my colleagues and saying, what are you hearing right now? And this one popped up a lot. And so do know that a 529 plan, you can be a part of it, really any state's 529 plan. It's a great college savings vehicle. Think about it as a parallel to your retirement to a certain extent. You pick a usage date, typically your student's high school graduation. It is invested. You have a little bit of choice, based on the plan. You're not going to pick things, but you have kind of a lump, like a mutual fund type of strategy. And then it grows and it kind of stays the same. And as you get closer, it becomes more and more conservative as you go through. So great. But when you're getting ready to utilize that, you are not restricted by the state or the school that you're going to utilize it as. So you can use it at any state, regardless of whether it's a sponsored program by your state. You can be a resident of a state and use an out-of-state plan as well. Now, it is that fun. You get to utilize it and you have some restrictions of when you can use it or how for what expenses that you use. But for the most part, it is really flexible in that sense. And there's a lot of ways that you can, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that. Maybe we'll get to that. But that you can utilize it. And if your student doesn't go to college, there are strategies that way to divert those funds.
Well, actually, really quickly though, take us through that. So because another rumor is this idea that if you put it into a 529 plan and your student doesn't go to college, now you can't use that money for anything. The money is gone. It's obviously not gone.
No. Yes. So in a certain standpoint, you can still pull that out. There might be some penalties. There might be some you'll end up, because you're not utilizing it for educational funds, your capital gains will be taxed on the growth, which is another kind of benefit of utilizing a 529 plan, because you don't have to pay taxes on your capital gains in that growth period. But also, there's a lot of other alternatives. Is that student, you might not think about college or higher education. You might be thinking about it as a 4-year college and that traditional type of experience. Well, you can still use a 529 plan for certificates or a community college, extended community education. So even if your student is not interested in a 4-year college, there might be a lot of alternative classes. Maybe they're starting their own business and they want to create their own business plan. There's a lot of creative ways to utilize that. If your student is attending private school, you have the ability to utilize private school through K through 12 up to $10,000 a year. You can move that money over to another student, so like a brother and sister that are planning on going, and then you move it over there. I've had parents utilize it for travel courses, where certain universities might have summer courses where their professors travel to Rome and teach kind of classes or tours, and they utilize their 529 plan, because you do have the ability to change the user or the account, the beneficiary of that account. And I've even had, and there's opportunities to roll it over into a Roth. I mean, there's so many different ways to utilize that fund outside of kind of a traditional 4-year college.
Yeah. Yes, I think bottom line here is that money is not gone.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And so, you could still access it. And like you say, you can access it without penalty in many different ways. So still could be a really good option for you as a family. Alex, thank you so much. We did not even, I wouldn't say we didn't come close to getting all the rumors, but we didn't get to everything.
Yeah.
But for those people who listen to the show, we do talk about a wide variety of rumors that float around. So just keep listening. We'll get to it eventually.
And check out our blogs. Our
Yes,
blogs definitely answer some of those rumors that you have.
absolutely. So thanks to Alex and to all my guests today. Next week, Sally is hosting. We're doing a deep dive on Hamilton College. I mentioned the blog. You can find that at blog.getintocollege.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, at College Coach BH. You can send us questions via Facebook and Instagram if you'd like us to answer them on the show. And don't forget, we are here every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Pacific.